Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and today is a big video. We are looking at how to improve your Vainglory 5v5 play from top to bottom using a simple mnemonic to help you understand and remember what you need to do on the Sovereign's Rise in order to find success. The mnemonic that we're going to use is called SLOWJOG. Hopefully that's rememberable enough. I kind of made it up myself. I know it's a bit of a funny one, but SLOWJOG is how we're going to get better at Vainglory 5v5. Actually got this idea from our CEO of Super Evil Megacorp, Christian Segastrali, who said that he used mnemonics in learning to fly in order to remember which controls to check, which data he needed to take in, how to perform a landing. All of that came through in the form of mnemonics. So we're going to use this SLOWJOG mnemonic to help you think about what to think about on the 5v5 map. Now, it might not make much sense now, but hopefully by the end of the video, everyone here will be slow jogging. The first letter that I'd like to talk about is S for scout cams, but what I mean by this holistically is vision. Can I place a camera is the first thing that I always think about. Look at my inventory. Is there a number underneath my camera? Can I put that somewhere where it's going to have an effect on the map? That means if I'm a laner, can I put it to stop myself getting ganked? If I'm a captain, can I support a laner with extra vision? Or can I put one into the enemy jungle to try and get some information about where the enemy jungler is? And the same thing for a jungler. Like with a captain in jungle, you should always be looking to support the vision across the map or support a specific laner with their vision control. Where's the enemy vision? Always got to think about where the enemy has got their scout cams placed, because that allows you to A, negotiate that vision if you're a jungler, try and get round it to make a gank happen, or you can clear the vision. For instance, as a captain, going around and clearing vision by roaming to lanes, putting it in a brush, and having a 2 versus 1 situation so you can clear that scout cam safely. And that's another thing that you need to think about. Can you clear scout cams safely? If you're a laner in a 1v1 situation and you're losing, there's no way that you're going to be able to clear the enemy scout cam, because they'll just come up and fight you and you'll end up losing that trade. So make sure that if you're going to try and clear a scout cam, it's a safe way to do so. Can you get vision down in the enemy jungle? For instance, I like putting vision down between the weapon power buff and the gold toad. That's my favorite place because it will give me strict information about where the enemy jungler is if they're going onto the top side of the map. But also you can do that in the crystal power side too, which is the bottom side of the enemy jungle. And that acts like a preemptive warning for ganks. If I see the enemy appear near Gold Toad because of that piece of vision that I put down, I know that they might gank top or mid lane. And also, what can you see on the map right now? What heroes can you see? If the enemy mid laner and the captain and the jungler are not on the map, do I need to be worried as a side laner? Just always think about what you can see on the map and what it means for you as a player. If I suddenly don't see anybody on the map from the enemy team, I'm like, bloody hell, they might be doing Ghostwing or Blacklaw, I better get some vision down there. So always think about why people are missing on the map. Have they backed? Are they ganking me? Are they doing an objective? All of those things should be going through your mind. The next letter is L for lanes. This is actually especially pertinent for captains and junglers, but you can also think about this as a laner too. Which lanes are winning and losing? Have a look at all of your lanes. In this video, you'll notice that I pan between all the different lanes quite often as the captain, just to get information about how those lanes are going. If a lane is winning, can I do anything to support its winning? If the lane is losing, can I do anything to turn that around? Is a lane likely to get ganked, and can I do anything to prevent it? For instance, if I know where the enemy jungler or the enemy captain is, and I know they're going to go gank a lane, can I get there in time to prevent that gank? Can I turn it around with a counter gank? Can I put some vision down so that my laner doesn't get caught out by that gank, for instance? The flip side of that is, can I gank a lane? Remember, I have to think about, as a captain, I want to roam, I want to try and impact as many lanes as possible. Lots of things to think about when you're ganking. Wave position. If my laner is at their turret and the enemy is pushing them in hard, that's a great position for me to try and gank. If my laner is doing that to the enemy and is pushing the lane in really hard, then that's not a great position to gank unless you feel confident tower diving. You need to think about the enemy vision. For instance, if the enemy has vision and they see you coming, they will just back off. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's called creating pressure. Just by forcing the enemy back, that might give your laner a bit of time to breathe, get some last hits with their Book of Eulogies, and get back up to full HP, but that's fine. You need to think about enemy vision, especially if you're trying to go for a kill. And you need to think about where the enemy jungler and the enemy captain are. If they disappear from the map and you don't know where they are, is it safe to gank a lane? Could they be counter-ganking you? If they turn things around, what would that mean for your lane? So always think about the position of the enemy jungler and the enemy captain. One of the big things that you need to think about is whether you can support a losing lane. For instance, if my Gwen this game went 0-7 and she misses her tension bow power spike by about 5 minutes, is there any point me trying to help her out, or should I just try and get my Vox or my Kestrel snowballing to make sure that I have pressure on the other side of the map? If I can help that lane, how much help do I need to give them to make sure that they aren't constantly feeding? You need to balance up the probabilities of whether you have a bigger win condition helping one of your other laners. For instance, in this game, I would be more inclined to help the Vox because I know he scales well, and I know he's going to be a side lane pressure. If I can help him going against the Gwen who falls off late anyway, it's probably better to go and help the Vox. Is it possible to take an objective from the lane? For instance, if I go to top lane, go to bot lane, can I get a gank off or force the enemy back and then just group with my laner and take the turret? Because that should always be my objective in Vainglory. Global objectives are key. The next letter in the mnemonic is O for objectives. Probably one of the most important letters because objectives are the best way to win a game. First of all, turrets. Can you take one? Have you got enough pressure in lane by yourself to take the turret? You should be focusing that down as much as you can. Can you rotate to a lane that has got that pressure to take it? Can you tower dive and take the turret afterwards? Can you gank a lane and then join that lane to help take the turret, for instance? Can you take one of the neutral global objectives like Blackclaw? For instance, if you've just won a team fight, have you got enough damage? Are you healthy enough to take Ghostwing or Blackclaw? Is this something that you can achieve? If the enemy is doing Ghostwing or Blackclaw, or they're grouping up to take a turret, can you actually feasibly stop them, or do you just need to let it go and try and get something else on the map? Do you have vision of the objectives? Do you have a scout cam at Blackclaw? Do you have a scout cam at Ghostwing? Will you be able to tell if the enemy is going for it just by seeing them move off the map, or do you need that vision to make sure you can contest it properly? And objective trading. If you lose your top lane turret, are you able to get the bot lane turret in response? Are you able to get the mid lane turret? Are you able to get whichever objective is the furthest away from it? A classic objective trading mechanic. Objectives should be your primary focus in Vainglory. Always be thinking about making a decision with an outcome about how it impacts your ability to take an objective from the map. Carrying on with the SLOWJOG mnemonic, and the W in it stands for waves, or minion waves. First of all, in the lane, should be thinking about whether you can freeze or push your wave. If you are in a good position, can you freeze it so that the enemy has to come to you and you can get good trades? Or can I freeze it to prevent myself from getting ganked? Should I push my wave because I've just killed the enemy and I want to make them lose some of that creep to turret so they lose the experience and the gold and the turret takes it? Or should I push it because we're setting up to go for a turret dive? Or should I push it because we're setting up to take the turret itself? Am I farming well enough? Is something that you always have to keep an eye on. Make sure you're checking your CS versus the enemy CS. Do you need to be a bit more precise in the way that you're last hitting? Do you need to focus on farming rather than focus on trading if you're not getting anything from those trades? Pay attention to your side lanes. Don't let enemy minions win the game for them. Make sure if the enemy is setting up some sort of push in the side lane, you're ready to respond to it. Always, always, always make sure that after a team fight or after a skirmish or any situation that you find yourself distracted by engaging the enemy, that you check the side lanes to make sure that a minion wave with 4 captain minions isn't taking your armory by itself, because that'll end up losing you the game. So always keep an eye on what's happening to the minion waves in the side lanes, especially because they can be devastating if you let things build up too much. Can you set up a slow push in a side lane? Now, the easiest way to set up a slow push in a side lane is to get your minion waves to meet on your side of the map. Then all you do is kill the enemy captain minion in a captain minion wave, or just take out 2 minions in a normal minion wave. That should set up a situation where your wave starts to push very slowly, but builds up to be very sizable by the time it gets to the enemy's side of the map. So that's the easiest way to set that up. Can you prevent an enemy slow push before it gets too big? Recognize that an enemy might have set up a slow push, and you can meet it in the middle of the map and clear it before it gets too big to deal with, pushing it back towards the enemy. Always really important to just pay attention to those minion waves, because too many people I know have lost a game of Vainglory because the enemy minion wave has won it for them. The next letter is J for jungler, and the first thing that I always think about when I come across this in my head is, where is the enemy jungler? Have I seen them on the map recently? Have they ganked a lane recently? How close is that to my other lanes? How close is that to my lane if I'm a laner? Have I seen them take a buff recently because they've got that buff on them? Do I know that they're farming a specific camp because it's just come off cooldown? Do I have any deep vision in the enemy jungle that has highlighted their position so I know whether to be careful or whether I can be aggressive? That moves on to, where is my jungler? Is my jungler nearby so that if I do get ganked, he can counter gank me? If I'm going to take a trade in lane, or I'm trying to bait for the enemy, is my jungler in a position where they can react immediately, or they're going to take 5 to 10 seconds to get there? No point going in for a bad trade when your jungler is taking healing Treant, because he's going to finish healing Treant before he comes to help you. Also, as a laner, I need to think about if I'm going to get ganked, and that relies on looking at my wave position. Am I shoved into the enemy turret with no vision? Yes, that's likely going to be a situation where the enemy jungle wants to gank me, so I need to think about that in respect to where the enemy jungler is on the map. If they're on the top side of the map and I'm Gwen in this particular game, and I push all the way to the turret, and I've got no vision, obviously the enemy Koshka is going to try and gank me, so I always need to be aware of that. Can I bait my enemy jungle because my jungler is nearby? For instance, if I'm going to take a bad trade in lane and the enemy is going to come gank me, can my jungle be there and try and counter gank so that we set up a situation where we turn it in our favour? And if that's the case, can you actually win that 2v2 or the 3v3 if the captains get involved? That is also something that you have to take into account. So when it comes to jungler, the most important thing, in my opinion, is though, make sure you're always thinking about where the enemy jungler is. You don't have to be right, obviously. It takes practice to get to a situation where you can predict the enemy jungle movements. But always think about in your head where they could be. It's often better to be safer than sorry. The next O is for overview, but I really want you to think about this as the scoreboard. Try and check the scoreboard as often as possible, at least once a minute, simply because it provides lots of important information that you can use to make decisions in game. First of which is what level are the enemies, or what level are your heroes. Remember, every hero has a level spike that they're going to want to try and abuse. Are your heroes near the level spike? Are the enemy heroes near level spikes? Do you need to be aware of anything? Has Celeste now hit level 8, so teamfights are going to be harder, or if Celeste is on your team, teamfights will be easier. Have they hit any big item spikes? Has Koshka finished her Aftershock? Has Samuel got his Spellfire or his Dragon's Eye or whatever? Make sure you're consistently checking the items to know which of the enemy heroes are strong right now and which ones you need to treat with the most respect, as well as which of your heroes are strong and which ones are going to be likely the best ones to protect in a team fight. How does your CS as a laner compare to the enemy? Are you keeping up? Are you behind? Do you need to focus on it in future matches? It's always important to make sure that you're comparing your CS to the enemy, because you'll know that even if you've got kills but you're massively behind on the CS, the enemy might still be just as strong as you. And are there any item cooldowns, especially for you guys that like to ping captains that they didn't use a fountain? Make sure that you're checking if fountain is off cooldown, crucible is off cooldown. You want to make sure that you engage a fight or engage a skirmish in a situation where you are best supported to do so. And a lot of that can come from the item cooldowns that you see on the scoreboard. It's really important to check the scoreboard as often as possible. It provides lots of information. It also tells you about whether certain heroes are going weapon power or crystal power. For instance, I've played versus Vox and I thought he was going weapon power. I ended up going crystal power and I got destroyed because I built armor without looking at the scoreboard. So make sure you're trying to glean as much information as possible, because it gives you so much in order for you to make in-game decisions. And finally, G for gold. How much gold do you have right now? Remember, I see loads of people sitting on about 3,000 gold sometimes and they've not spent it. That's a massive amount of time that you've wasted that you could have hit item spikes to dominate your lane even harder. Can you afford your next big item? Does it give you an item spike? Is that your Aftershock? Is that your Tension Bow? Is that your Sorrow Blade? You need to think about what your gold translates into. How far behind or ahead are your team? Make an estimation. One turret is 750 gold for a team, so if you've lost 4 or 5 turrets, do the maths. If you've got 4 or 5 turrets over your enemy, do the maths as well. Manage your back timings around your gold and your enemy laner. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but I see too many people just sit in lane farming when they could have backed, picked up a heavy steal, and won trades and snowballed even harder. It's not good to hoard gold. Make sure that you spend it. And finally, infusions versus finishing items. It's less important in 5v5 because I think infusions are more of that true late game item in 5v5, but always think about, especially in the late game, if the enemy all has infusions, especially now that they've increased their offensive capability, should you be spending your gold on an infusion to make sure that you're keeping up pace, or is the next item really important to you and you can afford to sacrifice that infusion? It really depends on your hero. For instance, if I'm a Celeste and I haven't finished my clockwork yet, and the enemy Celeste has got, or enemy whatever mage has got a CP infusion, I probably want to finish my clockwork because that's a really important item to how Celeste is played. So always got to think about that when it comes to spending your gold. There we have it, guys. That is SLOWJOG. Scout cams or vision, lanes, objectives, waves, minion waves, jungle, overview, and gold. All of them are very important aspects of the 5v5 game mode, and hopefully If you think about them more often, it will help you make better decisions when it comes to playing 5v5, especially important as ranked is just around the corner, and we all want to get onto ranked with our best foot forward. This isn't everything that you need to think about. A lot of it will come naturally, especially if you've played other MOBAs in the past, but hopefully this gives you a good starting point to make you a better Vainglory 5v5 player. There we go. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Remember, slow jog, guys. Slow jog.